who was quite possibly a spy for the Confederates. This story occurred shortly after she had begun gathering documents and subtly soliciting information that would be helpful to the Confederacy. She learned that Union soldiers planned to search local homes for Confederate contraband. So she gathered all her spying materials and put them under her huge hoop skirts and then sat down in a chair. When Union soldiers arrived to search her house, she remained seated as they searched. After they finished searching her home, one of the officers who was investigating asked her to stand up. She famously replied, "I thought not even a Yankee would expect a Southern woman to rise for him." She embarrassed the officer enough that he did not force her to stand. The search party left, and thus she was able to protect the fruits of her spying. That's feminine wiles right there. This is from the story My Dear Son, which is letters from Grays Hill, which is down near Woodlawn in the south part of the county. This describes a party that they went to, that Fred Snowden hosted this party in 1890. It was like a fairy tale there on the river. The lawn extends to the river. It was filled with Chinese lanterns and hammocks. They have a wide porch facing the river. The musicians sat at one end of the porch. It is about 15 feet wide and runs the length of the house. They danced on the porch, and I was honored with the first invitation to dance, but I declined. Eva and the girls seemed to enjoy it. I wish you could have seen the moon rise out of the river. It was magnificent. It threw a broad path of silver across the river. There at Riverview, right opposite on the Maryland side, the electric lights were all lighted, and about 30 lanterns on the lawn. I never saw such a beautiful place. The new steamboat McAllister came up from Marshall Hall about 11 o'clock. When it got to Riverview, it threw the searchlight over on us, and everything was as bright as noon. Then they came nearer. They threw the light again, saluted us, and the boys hurrahed and the girls waved their handkerchiefs. Stacy Snowden went down off the porch and rung the big bell. The music went on all the time. About 12 o'clock, we had sandwiches and coffee, then all kinds of cakes and bananas, lots of ice cream for the last course. Well, we had an elegant time, and the night was perfect. We got home at 2:30. And this is stuff just at the Occoquan workhouse in Lorton. This is a really heartbreaking story, and the workhouse recently opened, and you really should go down there. They're working on a museum for the suffragists. Of course, money is an issue, but that's going to be open soon. The worst treatment of all was brought about by prison hunger strikes when all forms of nourishment were refused. No penal authority wanted to be held responsible for the death of an inmate by dehydration. These suffragists were fine, upstanding women, like all the women in this room. Picture yourself going through this. These women had just picketed in front of the White House, which was absolutely scandalous at the time. Women just didn't do that kind of thing. They resorted to force feeding. The prisoner was physically restrained, and a tube was forced through a nostril and run directly down the throat to the stomach. Liquid nourishment was then poured through the tube. It was painful and possibly medically dangerous. And the last one. This is from Desegregation in the 1960s. Judy Street joins the March to Selma. This is what she wrote. We boarded the train at Union Station with our bedrolls and brown bag supper. It was a special SCLC Commission train, SCLC being the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, headed by Martin Luther King. About 8 p.m., a meeting was called in the club car, which was the headquarters for the SCLC staff, led by Hosea Williams, who was the national program director. He told us what to do, what to expect. This, again, is another soccer mom going off on this big adventure. To remember to keep the blinds down as we moved through the South at night because of the antagonism that would be felt if they saw blacks and whites in the same car, and so forth. He also explained that when we got to Atlanta, we would change trains, but we couldn't leave the station because it would be too dangerous. The next morning, we arrived at the station in Atlanta, standing around hungry. We'd run out of food we'd brought. We weren't allowed to leave. There was nothing there. We hung on, and we found out that the engineers wouldn't take us any further. They refused to move the train. Finally, Hosea Williams got through to Washington, and someone with influence got the train going again. Then we got back on board, and we arrived in Montgomery, where we were taken to a classroom for lessons in nonviolent behavior. They said, "Kneel down if you see you're going to be attacked. Kneel down, cover your head, and don't talk, and hope for the best." Gosh, I thought, what have I gotten myself into? So, all of these stories are worth reading, and it makes an excellent Christmas gift. My husband told me a while back, and he knows an awful lot about history, that Fairfax County has more history than any other county in the country. And I like to throw that in the face of historians and see how they react, because usually, like, they think it over.
Like someone just proved.
Exactly. Looking at this book as a whole and thinking about how many areas of history this book covers, and how much Braddock's True Gold covers, and books to come cover, and how much is in this library about the history of Fairfax County, and thinking about how much is not in this book that was left out and is still to be told, I think he's right. So get your copy today.